Him.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and I'm here for Deep Astrology Live for the week of February 26th through March the 4th of 2019. What's going on, everybody? If you've never been to the show, this is where I channel the astrology live to you, and then we go deep into the charts, brought to you by Astro Gold. Get it for your iOS, Android, Mac, or if you're on PC, make sure that you check out Solar Fire. Thanks so much for being here. I truly appreciate you watching this show live and spreading it out when it goes onto YouTube, or if you're here on Facebook where we stream it live. Now, we have a very intense week ahead of us because we are coming to a major closure in astrology. Thank God. Uranus, which entered into Aries in 2010 for its first ingress, is finally going to get the hell out of Aries next week. So we are literally on the last week of Uranus in Aries, and we are all at the edge of our seats, aren't we? Edginess during the time of when we have the sun in Pisces is not the easiest sometimes. Because number one, Pisces, where we have the sun right now, is of course in a very sensitive sign. Because Pisces is sensitive, and Neptune's in its home sign, and Mercury goes retrograde next week. So this is this final week of all these planets moving forward, which has been this big propel forward in your life. And honestly, when we talk about the sands of time, or we talk about the clocks and how, we are at this point where major choices are at our life, boy, oh boy, are they pretty major this week, especially with this Uranian element that's leaving Aries. And I really want to target this first. Think about 2010 in your life. How many masks, how many characters, how many hairdos, how many different clothing styles, how many different personalities have you tried? And really, it's about encompassing all of those into integration into the self that you are now. You've been playing around with a lot of different vibes, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different ways to find courage, too. You have to remember as well, when Uranus entered into Aries in 2010, it began the Pluto and Uranus square, which we have been going through since 2010. And what is that square? Well, Pluto and Uranus, when they met up, especially in 65, 66, this was the whole entire revolution that changed the world, with social, injustices needing to be changed, to, the hippie revolution, to the spiritual revolution of the 60s that came to its test. It was things like, okay, you look at it today, especially look over the last, 9 years of this Uranus Aries. I mean, think about where spirituality's gone. Think about where, we got over the whole idea of like the typical celebrity, how we got over, this like crazy world of identification where, what is this? What are we going to redefine that as? We have been in a redefining moment of the structures and the traditions in life because Pluto has been in Capricorn. And this has been an intense decade. Uranus in Aries, especially when it came back into Aries in 2011, was Fukushima, if you don't remember. And that shocked us. I'll never forget that feeling of watching the news in Fukushima with Uranus when it ingressed into Aries on its last time finally coming out of Pisces and coming into Aries. It was a huge boom. But that's the 0 point of Aries, where Chiron happens to be at, by the way. And now Chiron's going to be here for 8 years. So talk about having to kind of fight your way through, even though you've been, hit and emotionally and kind of is like a struggling, you being left off the side of the road and having to find the gas station a little bit, right? This is this moment with Uranus and Aries where we have to continue to push forward in the true identification of ourself. And speaking of pushing forward and getting a little bit of a nudge, the Sun in Pisces and Mars in Taurus are making an awesome sextile throughout the whole week. So even though you are battered, even though we have come through so much with Chiron that left Pisces, with, all of this emotional stuff that we're trying to make sense of, but somehow it seems like a messy situation, and it's sensitive, and it's confusing. And when you look at this Sun and Mars sextile, it's saying, push forward. And I think that it's difficult because the ultimate test of Uranus and Aries is to ascend into who you truly are. And I'm going to bring up some triggers here because I love to trigger people. So what is Aries? Aries is identification, it's ego, it's self, it's the courage to move forward and do what you want, which is ironic because, you know, in the spiritual community, we usually want to put the soul first, which is interesting that the soul is the last sign of the zodiac. But when you actually look at how astrology works, the sun rises in the 12th house over the horizon. And that's why we do put the soul first. And why do you think that the sun in the first house, if you look at astrology, is right before the dawn? Because no matter how much the ego tries to think that it can get what it wants, it always is going to be a little bit in the dark. It is when we allow ourselves, our souls, to rise into our true spiritual essence do we see the sunlight. But there is kind of a weird element to this, because I think when we actually look at our physical lives now, we are at a moment where our soul is known. Our soul work is very clear on what path feels in alignment with the universe. Remember, we're still dealing with the Saturn-Neptune sextile. Remember, we have Venus, which is in Capricorn, moving into Aquarius this week, leaving this really intense look as Venus went through Saturn and Pluto in the South Node of our relationships, our desires, our needs and our wants, our projects, of the things that we need to make tough choices on. But with Uranus here at the end of Aries, the ultimate test is to push forward and ascend into who you truly are. And soul work is more than just inside, it also is outside in the identification of who you are. You know, and Uranus in Aries is teaching you that without the noun, without the person, the place, or the thing, we have nothing. And I think that there's this part of ourselves that are in the nothing and having to pull out of the nothingness. It's a lot like the never-ending story when the nothingness is taking over and oh my gosh, it's taking over the whole entire world. That's what feels like right now. Because unless you become Falkor and Atreyu and get up on that motherfucker and start riding it into what you know you want and having the courage to go towards it, the nothingness will take you over. I mean, I'm going to be real. That's the feeling of nothingness, is when you don't identify, you don't have courage to push through where you know you got to go. And it's an uncomfortable ride, although I don't think Falkor has fleas or anything. I'm sure it was kind of comfortable, and it was probably pretty cool. And Falkor seems like a pretty cool dude to go fucking on a journey with. But I'm just trying to tell you that as the nothingness keeps pulling into your life, it really is because of the things in which you are afraid to change. Uranus is about change. What is insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over and over again? I think a really great man said that once, right? A man named Einstein. And you know what? The genius is just that. All the genius is continuing to write on a chalkboard and realize when the equation doesn't make sense that maybe it should try another equation. And maybe you should try another equation. Instead of staying on the same equation and keep, oh wait, I'm going to go back at this one more time. I'm going to go back at this one more time and figure it out. I'm going to go back at one more time and figure that out. I'm going to use an even other weird analogy. Do you really think that when America made the atom bombs, now I know that could trigger people because I know it was a horrible situation in 45 and what we did, but do you think that the Americans did that? No. When we went in and we invaded Germany with Russia, we stole all of the Germans and all their stuff. And how ironic that after we stole everything in Germany after the invasion of, in 44, when we went in and we did D-Day and we came in and we headed out, east and we took over and finally we got rid of the Nazi regime. Why do you think it was a German scientist who came through with the atom bomb for America? And why do you think Russia is the other country that gets all this atom bomb and space stuff? Do you think that there's a coincidence that the two countries that invaded Germany, that was doing all these crazy experiments and all these crazy things, actually ended up with bombs and space programs? Do you think that there's a coincidence there? No. And even today, who are the people? Well, China's now going, but we all know that they just jack everybody's shit. But, you know, it's like, and we went, well, you know, I don't know if I'd really want to go on a Chinese spaceship, you know what I'm talking about? But there's this whole element of us really realizing like doing the same thing over and over and over again doesn't make sense. Sometimes you got to try something new. And now I'm not saying that you need to go invade Germany to go get the equation to what you get, but it's the whole idea of maybe if you keep doing things over and over and over again, well, and it's not giving you a result, and it's not showing up, and it keeps being the same chaotic story, and the nothingness keeps coming at you, this is where you have to get out of your own pattern. Uranus shows you your patterns. It shows you where you're a genius and where you're a freaking fuck up, literally, and especially mentally. And I think that this is a hard point because with Mercury coming into the last degree of the zodiac by Monday, and where it's going to get ready for its retrograde on the 5th and station at the exact position where Chiron just left. And by the way, Chiron's at 0 Aries. So we got Mercury, we got Chiron. I'll show you guys in the charts. Talk about us coming to an edge in our life, a cliff. This is the last week with all the planets forward. This is the last week where, you know, we're getting ready for a new moon next week in Pisces conjunct Neptune, and talk about us all entering into truly surrendering. The biggest surrender of our lives is coming into trusting a higher dimensional path, that we are all mentally not looking at things correctly. And the reason why I say that is because Mercury's at fall position. It's been making hard squares to Jupiter. And I think that this is where we have to listen to the wisdom of a bigger, broader view. We need to look at the macro of things instead of getting caught up into this crazy micro. Although, you know, one of my favorite stores actually is called Micro Center, and that rules computers. And there's a whole thing about microchips, microwaves, smaller places to understand and go. But when you get into macro, you go into a whole different world. And this is where we have to start to see that if we are caught up in so much of the micro, oh my God, I'm missing this payment, I need to get this, and this relationship, if I don't figure out how to do this and this, we become chaotic. Uranus at the last degree of any sign is chaos. Because we start to freak out, we're at the edge of a cliff, and Uranus is there trying to push us forward into a better place, but there we are trying to go backwards and figure it out. And I've been using this analogy on some readings lately and everything. I mean, literally, it's like trying to fix a meth head's like fucking broken TV that they already fucking took apart 4 times and they broke the glass, and you somehow think you could fucking fix that thing? Do you identify with that television, number one? Do you identify with even being like a meth head and trying to fix a TV? I only know this from crazy past experiences when I was younger. But I will tell you that at the end of the day, this is not the time to go start fixing shit that's broke. This is about moving forward into fresh energy. Because what is Taurus, which comes up with Uranus next week? Value. So let's just take a step back to 2010 and 11, when Uranus had came into Aries in both times. You at your life came to a point to where you knew that there was a whole identity that you wanted to be, that you really wanted to fully go into it. And guess what? You have fully done that for the last 9 years. But the question is, and whether or not now that we move to a Venus sign, with what you move in with, are you ready to actually own it? Are you actually, whatever that you're coming to the conclusion within your life and what you need to change and which direction you go, are you ready to own that fully? We all are scared. We're scared on whatever road we choose. If we choose this road right here, I got to own this. There's going to be this self-worth energy. If I choose this road and I choose to keep it right now, is it really going to be as worthy as it was at one time, and will it get better? It's kind of like having a loaf of bread and keeping it in the freezer forever, because remember that Taurus rules the hoarder. So are you hoarding things because you're afraid and then you think it'll just get better? Do you think the loaf of bread will just eventually, being in the freezer forever, just maybe even turn fresh again? This is not a Mentos commercial. Mentos freshness. Like, I fucking love those commercials. I'm Dutch, you know? I love Mentos. But, you know, I'm sorry. The Mentos freshness comes with us owning new energy of our courage and going to places that we know are more valuable in our life to test our self-worth, that we know are scary, but we are going to ascend higher. You got to look back. You were willing to do that 8 years ago, 9 years ago, with more of the courage of what you want in your life, just as an identity. I remember back in 2010, when Uranus came in Aries, I was stoked. I'm a Leo, I'm a fire sign, I'm a Leo rising. I was stoked, and I was on reality TV shows, and I'm like, I'm coming out and saying I'm a fucking astrologer on TV, no matter how crazy people think I am. You remember, Uranus is crazy. Now we're about to go into Uranus Taurus next week. So here at the completion of Aries is you owning that identity fully of what you know you wanted over the last 9 years. And also, it's going to bring back weird cycles of relationships and situations and people and all these things that come back to that 2010 point, and what makes sense and what doesn't, and letting it go. It doesn't make sense for me to be a reality star competing for the face of Vegas about being an astrologer while trying to be like a hardcore, crazy, fucking going to be Vegas person. That doesn't make sense. So that's why I turned into this person. And you know what? At the end of the day, I don't think I'm going to be going back on some competition reality show. That's something that doesn't make sense for me in my life. And the relationships that were in my life at that time, some of them make sense. Craig, who's running this fucking operation behind me right now, was there with me in 2010 through all that shit, and it makes sense. And we both are best friends, and we're going into the future together. But then there's people at that time that are in my life or were in my life and don't make sense, and fucking they're gone out of my life because they don't fit into the equation correctly. The puzzle pieces don't make sense. Or my manager, believe it or not, my manager was the casting director of True Beauty that I was on ABC, and is now my manager. And how ironic that she came into my life this year, and we'd been doing things throughout the last 9 years, and here we are at the end of this Uranus and Aries transit, and we are moving in the future as my manager. And she was the casting director that casted me for ABC. This is the kind of shit that you have to start to put into your head here. That go back to 2010 and 11. That was a powerful time in your life of where things were going and who you are. But who you are at this point now, what makes sense from then and what doesn't make sense from now? What are you hoarding and what are you afraid of trying to create something new? It's almost like if you were a farmer and you're so used to always, farming corn. It's like you're so afraid to try broccoli, you're freaking the fuck out. Or actually, we'll do a really good analogy of Uranus. You've always been a corn farmer and now you're here to grow marijuana. Sure, both plants, way different realities. Different customers, different situations, different protecting. I don't think people are out there trying to steal people's corn all day, you know what I mean? I mean, maybe, there's the guy and the girl that want to get in the car and go through the cornfield and have a little bounce, chicka wow. But it's a little different, I guess, on a marijuana farm, right? You're going to have to look out for people that are going to jack that shit, or people that are going to be, roasting up fucking your shit in the middle of the field. So, of course, there's fears when we move into these new energies of things that we feel, are worthy of us, or where we have to go to create or manifest a new world, a new life. So we're scared. And the nothingness is closing in. And what is that nothingness? With Venus coming out of Capricorn and coming into Aquarius this week, the nothingness is the fear of connecting to a new world, connecting to new people. This is the first time in 2 years that the Venus has come into Aquarius without the South Node in Aquarius, which means we tried this shit a couple years ago. We really tried to connect to the world. We really tried to find our tribe, and it all just got kicked back out at us and went, pfft. This time, the tribe, Uranus and Aries, Venus in Aquarius now without the South Node. And sure, Uranus and Venus are going to make a square this week. So when it comes to relationships, these are going to be fast, crazy breaks. Bam, done, out, later. Because this is Aries, Uranus. And unfortunately, Venus in Aquarius is like, shit, I want to connect with people in the world, but I got this whole Uranus Aries to get squared. Or actually, it's Venus Capricorn, right? Like, this path and these people and this identity, and we're not on the same page here. There's a lot of where this is the final test of people and what page makes sense and which one doesn't. And it's fucking hard because when you're in Pisces, it is about surrender. It is about learning to be compassionate though too. But you got to go through your own emotional stuff, your own depressive stuff, because with Mercury here is lost. That little boat, Mercury, the little microchip who thinks it's figured out the whole entire world, is in the middle of the most chaotic storm of its whole entire life right now. And it has no GPS on, and it does not know where it's going. It can, right now, the only thing that it can do is just follow the universe, follow the stars, follow the fucking winds, and where it shows it's going. And I think what's even more intense about this week is when you add this whole element of the moon. So the moon's been squaring all this Pisces energy, and so it's in Sag to start this off, and Jupiter's here. Go look up, if any of you all are up at 4 in the morning, which most of you aren't. I'm up at 4 in the morning usually to go look at this because it's been beautiful. We've had Jupiter on the if you go look on the eastern horizon, it's been Jupiter, Saturn, and then you've got Venus. It's been beautiful. Now we're going to have the moon, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus this week. I mean, I don't want to get all Christian on you all, but you know, the 3 magi and looking at the stars and the bright stars to know Jesus was born, I'm just using an analogy. This is us birthing the canal of our new sovereign life. No coincidence, the 3 bright planets are all in alignment at the horizon line with the moon this week before all these major fucking changes. Sometimes I just, got to try and teach astrology people out there that it's not just so much about the charts. It's not so much about this. Sometimes you need to go fucking outside and go look at this shit. That's what the Magi did. Do you think the Magi were sitting in a hut fucking jerking each other off, fucking, writing charts the whole fucking time? They went out on camels and were like, look at this shit, man. It's an awesome week if you're willing to go on the adventure of your fucking life. And what's hard is the moon's going to come through Capricorn with Saturn and Pluto as Venus is exiting, right? This is going to be intense, right? Where there's tough choices. And Venus has to look at Uranus and go, if I'm going to get what I want, there's going to be some deeper emotional stuff to go through because the North Node is in Cancer. And with Venus, Uranus squaring with the nodes there, sure, there's this part of us going, we know we got to go on this trail, we got this destiny, but of course there's North Node in Cancer, which is home, which is feeling secure, which is feeling safe. And it's that fear of losing that safety. It's that fear of losing that safety net. But there comes a point to where what is the best emotional place for you to be, even if it does take a tough choice, because there is a tribe out there. There is a bunch of people. There is a whole world out there, and there is a new home out there for a lot of us. And the nothingness is that the home in which we had at one point is gone. And I think that that's what is so scary, is that we have to trust, as we were all, imagine your life on a little boat out in the middle of the ocean, and you can't see and it's foggy. That you have to use your hope. You have to see the bigger picture here. Instead of getting caught up in the micro and getting caught up on how much food do we have and oh my gosh and oh la la la, knowing that just beyond that fog just might be the most amazing island of all from Lost. In the Dharma initiatives there, Maybe Kate's not hooking up with every other dude on the island. But, there's that whole element of like, this is this amazing point where we are all being birthed through the new birth canal of our true identities and not being afraid of it. Why are you afraid to be who you are fully? Why are you afraid to let out who you fully are? I think that the only comfort that really lies in our lives right now is the true essence of our authenticity and the integrity and the actual compassion, whether it's in relationships and even in yourself or even in projects, to show up as full authentic and be like, you know what? This is who I am and this is how it is. And I think that that's hard because people try to do what's more comfortable. Oh, well, if I'm my full self, it's going to affect everybody in this sort of way. And that's Venus and Aquarius, where you can get a little lost. Like, well, I don't want to like go into the camp and, sleep next to this person in a tent because I tend to go pee 3 times a night, or something like that. It's kind of like, hey, that's you. People will accept you. If it was real tribe and if it was real home, they would love that part about you. They'd be like, hey, you taking another piss? Right on. But it's you creating your own crazy mental cycles here of delusion. Like, I can't go next to, I can't do this. I can't be that way. It's like, that's the nothingness. Nothingness, I think, even if I remember in the Never-Ending Story, which again is an irony to this thing right now. We are at an end of a story, but it never does truly end. But it does get read by new people, the book, that bring new perspective and enter into it to understand the story. And I think that this is where maybe the Never-Ending Story, as it ends, has a new watcher to watch it, whether we look at that as the change of ages that is here, whether we look at that as the galactic shift points. Maybe there is a new sense of the universe or a new reader that is entering in. And thank God, because that kid in the movie I did not like, and I don't know if I'd want him reading me in the middle of the story. That'd be a little creepy. He creeped me out. But, he found his glory, he found his excitement, and he found his courage through reading this book. And I think that it was people who showed up in that movie and in that story and in our stories now that show up fully authentic. And there's a rite of passage here. The only way Atreyu was even able to get past is he had to go through challenges. And I think the greatest challenge is when they had the 2 big women that were those big, statues where they could tell if you were true of heart. Because heart is authenticity at its greatest. And that is when you're comfortable with yourself and who you are and not worrying about how everybody else is going to be affected and going through that. And I remember that the guy before him had tried to show up all macho with a sword and all these things. I could get through this. But it's where we drop our swords now. We show up with who we really are. And we show that we have the power to move through this new course that's in front of us and end this chapter that has taught us about all the parts of who we are. Think of Uranus and Aries as like a trillion different chalkboards that you have written on of playing with equations of who you are. That you've been waiting to finally have all those chalkboards come together and define you perfectly. We are going to have a dark moon. And this dark moon is no coincidence that it's happening right before Mercury goes retrograde and Uranus leaves Aries. And this dark moon is in Aquarius. And in Aquarius, a dark moon is not fun with the sun in Pisces because we start to worry about everybody else and what everybody else thinks, and especially with Venus there. We only feel like we can feel good once we have somebody else's attention or once we have somebody else in our life or some other connection or what the world is perceiving us as. When really all that matters is us being in our true essence of our soul and watching the people that are meant to be there show up and trusting that as we move forward through this process and we move forward through this ending cycle, because remember that the last new moon was in Aquarius. And that last new moon in Aquarius was at a very pivotal point. It was at the end of Chiron and Pisces. That we need to really realize that the last month was not that easy. And that as we come through this birth canal, as we come through this rite of passage right now, that this new moon that's coming up next week is about us being prepared for the surrender to the true soul of who we really are. And to not freak out. And with Mercury and Chiron conjuncting at the last degree of the zodiac and the first degree of the zodiac at 29 Pisces and 0 Aries, there is a freak out because there's a line between this. Here we are with Mercury ready to go into who we fully are, and Chiron that's been beating up and is so like just determined to just become who it is, but it feels wounded. Because it hasn't actually let go of the things that do not serve us anymore in our life. So how are we going to integrate into this huge, amazing self if we're afraid of letting go of the things that don't make us authentic? If we're afraid to let go of the things that are not pure of our heart, pure of who we really are in our soul. And I think that the hardest part about this week, with all this will be the craziest Mercury retrograde you will all ever feel in your life. I'm just letting everybody know. That we have to go backwards and clear everything that doesn't work anymore, and that has come to an ending. Because Mercury stationing at the last degree of the zodiac, and Mercury is the original and always will be the original ruler of astrology, is at the end of the cycle. And it is going to retrograde there. And in alchemy, and in Hermetic alchemy especially, Mercury is at the center of every drawing you've ever seen about astrology and alchemy in itself. And when it's at the last degree, this is where we actually see the ultimate rays of our huge spirit, but we also have to see the underbelly, which Mercury rules both because it's neutral, of a benefic and a malefic, that we are going to have to face to get to the greatness. We have to let go of what is no longer working, that is challenging, and that is holding us back. And Mercury is not excited at all. And this is going to feel confusing only when you put your mind, you put your logic first, and you don't know how to trust your visions, your dreams, the true essence of your heart. Jupiter and Sag, you see the big picture, the adventure. With Uranus finishing in Aries, the ultimate understanding of, you know what, I know who I really am, and I'm going to actually ascend to a higher place. And with the Sun and Mars, this is the last week with all the planets direct, and with any Sun and Mars energy and positivity, to make your final last stand to move forward, because after this, the concrete starts drying. And if these are situations that you want to sit in and deal with for all of 2019 to deal with, go right ahead. But as somebody who has actually been in jail before, I am telling you, this is where you don't go backwards. This is where, when it looks like you're at the end of your ropes, emotionally and sensitivity-wise, that you truly know a higher road. You see it. This is a blind corner. And instead of going, I don't know, I'm going to go around this corner and there's not going to be a road, or maybe there's going to be a crazy circus, or the crazy circus is turning around on a road that's already turning and causing backup traffic, accidents, and so forth, where forward is the only way. And this is the last thing I'll say before we do these charts, is Mars is in Taurus, and it's getting ready in the next couple weeks here to make awesome aspects to all this Capricorn energy. And Uranus is getting ready to enter Taurus, where Mars is, to give us the confidence to build a better life. But remember that Taurus starts from a new place, because it is the second sign of the zodiac. And this is not about us trying to repair or fix things that have already come to their endings. And this is about a better life. And the only way to a better life with Mars and Taurus sextile the Sun in Pisces is following the vision, following your angels, following God and where it's pulling you, and more importantly, learning the art of true surrender. Let's look at these charts. Well, there we are. Hello. I know, kind of a crazy week. I will say that emotionally speaking, this has not been easy, folks. And there is no Looney Tunes at the end going, that's all, folks. Well, kind of it is, actually. And that's, I think, what the scariest part is like, that's what you end it with, is like, that's all, folks. That's it. Bye. But you got to realize, and I have to say this before I go into the charts, you have to realize that all the stories that are ending in your life right now have given you many, like, credits have rolled. And then you weren't ready for the credits to roll. So you were like, no, rewind, go back. I want to play at least the last scene again, or go back halfway and let's replay it again. And then the credits have been rolled a million times. And finally, that's all, folks, is showing up. And I think that's important to remember. And I think this is about finding true comfort in a world that which you're already uncomfortable now, even in the situations you're trying to hold on to. You really think that's a comfortable place? So here's the chart for today, Tuesday. We're going to go through these quick. Look at this. We start this week with Mars at 8 and 0, or here we are, the Sun at 8. So the Sun and Mars are an awesome sextile right now. And this is an awesome thing because this is truly about moving forward. Now, Mars is in detriment, so it's kind of slow. And the Sun in Pisces is very slow as well because it's so deep in the ocean and it's really emotional. And so this is about cultivating something beautiful. But we are head ADHD cases right now with Uranus at the end of Aries. We are stimulated because remember that Aries rules the head and the brain, okay? The higher, or just the whole head, right? But this nervous system is going crazy right now, especially as Uranus and Neptune are still making their semi-square. So it doesn't make sense to us who we really are because we feel guilty about whether we feel guilt from God, guilt in ourself, because there's this whole integrity thing going on in Capricorn with the South Node that is almost demanding this whole integrity or play the way that society wants you to do it. If you do this, then you're a bad person because nobody does that, and that's not the way to be, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Sorry, this is us having to learn this whole new Uranus, Mars, okay, and Taurus, Aries. It's like kind of saying, basically, fuck you, I'm going to go do what feels good and what feels like me. And, you know, this is like a total, you know, Adam and Eve situation where Eve goes out and eats the freaking fruit from the tree without her feeling bad. And I know that that might, you know, some people might be triggered by even that analogy. But, you know, we kind of do live in a world where, no, don't do who you really are. Don't do what you want. How are we going to ascend to this new light worker? And I think that this is really, on a deeper, longer scale, this is the separation of people who are going to go into where people think that we are crazy people or we're going to hell or we're going to whatever, because this is the spiritual revolution that came. Really, this is true revelations in the Bible. But really, that there's a lot of things in all these stories at the end of Pisces and the age of Pisces are coming up, where it's like you see people in the spiritual community, I won't even name names, that are going backwards and going, you know what, I'm afraid, so I'm going to go back and practice this, and I'm banishing that in my life. I'm not going to do that anymore because it's too crazy. My life's going too crazy. Well, yeah, you know what? When you're locked up in a prison like the Matrix and you wake up, it's going to feel crazy. So it's much easier to go, let me slide back into my tube full of pink slime where they're eating me and making me a battery. Wonderful. I hope you have fun. Mercury and Chiron getting closer, so we are starting to feel even weirder and weirder and weirder in our minds, and we are starting to look at things like, this is just a messy situation that I don't know. I don't know if I even want to deal with it. Is there a way to try and look at this a different way? Is there a way, like, why did God give me these cards? That's the question of Chiron and Aries with Mercury now approaching. It's like, unlogically, actually start to basically convince yourself that you've been just given a horrible hand, you've been given a bad life, you've been given a bad situation, this is all fucked up, when really that this is the gem. This is what you were waiting for. And it's crazy and chaotic as you were ascending out of it. You know, it's kind of like being stuck in a trash compactor in Star Wars, you know, in the first one, and like the trash is everywhere, and it's like, finally, there's a doorway out. But you're like, well, I don't know if I want to take that one. You almost have gotten addicted to being comfortable in the trash. And you see this as like, why did this all happen? Well, if you wouldn't have gotten the trash compactor, then you wouldn't have been able to get even in the Death Star and blow the whole thing up. Like, there's this whole kind of, everything's happening for a reason right now at the highest levels. And this is where fate is overdoing free will. I think that the only free will choice is this little doorway here of what side, heads or tails, of this story, that especially because it's dealing with relationships. Venus on the south node just went through Pluto and Saturn. It just brought up a harsh reality for the last week. And this is where the big choice is, because Venus, Pluto and Saturn, you got to remember, look at how close they are. And let me remove this. Okay, so they're only 5 degrees apart, all right? And when you're 5 degrees apart, we are in a conjunction point now, folks. And these two have not met up till they met in Libra at 27 degrees in 1982 and but especially 1983, okay? So that was the crazy cycle of relationships that has been going on for 35 years, into 36 years this year, okay? And we are coming to the ending of crazy 35, 36-year relationship transits in a, whether or not we're going to imprison ourselves in a world that has been operating at the same capacity forever, or are we going to free ourselves into our true emotional feelings, our true emotional self, and see that the ultimate comfort is exiting a crazy, locked up society that doesn't allow you, by the rules that aren't even written in laws, but are written somewhere in the ether somewhere, or subconsciously been built in us to lock us from our greatness, to lock us from our true essence of our true spiritual self. The true free will test at this point is whether or not you are going to lock yourself in your own prison or free yourself, because the real game is on after this week. It's fucking real. And this is the test of whether or not you're going to actually fucking go, or you're going to just be a, I don't want to do it. And that's cool. I say this a lot of times. Revolutionary War, 19% of the people participated. Only about 50 people showed up in a room and made a Declaration of Independence. And not a lot of people joined the whole cause. And they sat in their houses and sat by their fires and, tried to pop their hemorrhoids and shit. And waited to see if they would be a Tory or an American. So I get it. And I as a, I'll just be real. I didn't come down here to just float your boat and just give you just like some, happy astrology all the time and just say, okay, yeah, you'll be fine, and it's great. Like, I came down here, and a lot of other light workers came down here to fucking change this world. And you know that you have that choice right now of a new earth. Dolores Cannon talks about a new way. I was hanging out with Shaman Derek this weekend talking. He spoke at Conscious Life Expo. That guy is on it. That guy is here pushing people into the new world. Big shout out to that guy. That guy blew my mind. There are leaders here, and leaders are not separate from you. Leaders are all what this world is trying to become, because humanity cannot free itself unless it is becoming a whole entire race of leaders in itself, and that lead each other, and that help each other, and that follow and leave this old system which humanity has been entrapped in, of holding itself back, holding out its true divine soul, holding back out a bee, and watching everyone else, and then hoping for some savior moment. The savior is yourself. But the whole thing is the savior is yourself with God's help. And that's where I think things got diluted in the last 2,000 years with the age of Pisces, is that somehow God's going to save the day. Just go fuck around and sin and pray, and don't worry, you'll be fine. Just sit in the system that we created and built. The Savior is you and God saving by God giving you all of these answers, all of these signs, God giving you all of the visions, all the support, and whether or not you are going to save yourself. And be you. I know it's like so simple, be you, but this is what it's about. So if we go to Wednesday, we still got Sun and Mars in sextile. So this whole week, the Sun and Mars are kind of, Sun's going forward, Mars is moving forward. They're kind of going back and forth between exact sextiles. So remember, this whole week is about push forward, okay? I know it's not easy, but that's the whole final test of Uranus and Aries, okay? Look at that, 29:43. But as we start to build up, we got the moon and Jupiter, and this is where I was talking about to look in the sky, especially on Wednesday. Go look at the sky in the morning at like 4 a.m. I dare you. How about this? You want to test about whether or not you really are willing to do spiritual work in the world and like change your life? Set an alarm for 4 a.m. Set an alarm for 4 a.m., walk outside, and go look at the eastern horizon where the sun is rising. Wherever the sun rises, wherever you live, go look at 4 a.m. You will see the moon. You will see Jupiter right there. So you will see a huge brightness of Jupiter. You will see the moon. Then you will see a dull Saturn. And then you will see Venus brighter than ever. And you will see the sunlight coming up. And so the moon from Wednesday all the way until we get to this weekend is going to be covering all of these big bright planets, okay? And this is where the south node is, and this is the ultimate test, as Jupiter is in its home sign and Saturn is in its home sign. And the moon is going to sit at the in-between spot of this. And this is a tough call, because with big adventures and opening up yourself to a bigger place and all the opportunities in the world, it's going to be work. It's going to take, and I don't even like that word work. Shaman Derek told me a great way. It's called engagement. Are you going to engage into your openness, into your power, into the open doors right now? Doors only open after other doors close. That's kind of how the universe works. I hate to say it. Especially with Saturn in its home sign and Jupiter in its home sign. So, without closing a door fully, another door will not fully open. But sitting in between doorways is purgatory. So, the nothingness is when you sit in purgatory. And especially with Mercury, look at this. Mercury is like almost ready to retrograde, 26 degrees, and it's heading towards Chiron. All it sees is, oh my gosh, no matter what I pick, I'm just getting screwed, huh? I'm just getting screwed. And as the sun is approaching Neptune, there's that whole element of that fear of surrendering to, or at least empowering, your true essence of your soul. But this moon is going to square Mercury on Wednesday, and so there's going to be a lot of questions up, but the universe is going to show the big way. And with Jupiter in its home sign, it is showing the doors to open. And Mercury has to listen to this now. It has to listen. Mercury doesn't have all the answers. Mercury right now does not have it. It's in fall position. It's in Pisces. It's at the last 3 degrees of the zodiac, which if you all don't know, the last 3 degrees, which is the last 3 days of Christ after he was crucified, the 3 days of 26, 27, or 27, 28, 29 Pisces is the whole entire, in the cave, going through the whole entire, right before the transcendence, when he actually is reborn again. And so Mercury is about to enter into, for a long time, for over a week and a half, weeks here, this cave. So it can't see. It doesn't know it has to trust. But it does have Jupiter offering with the moon this last bit of ray of hope. To see the road that's in front, to see the horizon line, to see the hope, and to find it in yourself. Because as we enter this weekend, this shit is going to get gnarly. Gnarly. Radical, dude. So, last day of the month, February 28th. How ironic. Already, how weird are the times? And we're, of course, at the weirdest time of the Gregorian calendar, which is, why in the hell is there only 28 days in a freaking February? Makes sense to me with all the crazy shit going on. So we've got this awesome Sun and Mars in sextile during this period, but a moon in Cappy. And look at all this Capricorn. Oh my gosh. We got Venus, we got the South Node, we got Pluto, we got Saturn, we got the moon. So Cappies, I'm just going to talk to the individual sun sign. You guys need to just do you. You know it. And I know it's going to come into, people aren't going to understand it with the Cancer stuff. And for all signs, what does this mean? We have a step towards a very hard, big mountain with a little flag on the top of where we know we need to go. And Cancer is like base camp, right? With the fire and, you know, food and a bed and, I don't know, really comfortable soup. And so the opposition here is like maybe the comfortable soup is us moving to our authentic self, because once we build a foundation of our comfortable self, we can reach the ultimate goals of our life. And so that's what this whole weekend or coming up to this weekend is about, especially as Venus is at 28 degrees. And this is the spot in which Mars went direct in September of 2018 when you knew you had to move forward. And did you get scared? Venus is now going to understand what Mars went through the retrograde. And Venus is about to enter Mars retrograde cycle of 2018. Pause on that one for a moment. So what you went through from your life from June 26th of 18 until, let's just put it till the end of September of 2018, are you about to clean up that mess? Or are you about to own that mess? You know, Venus in Capricorn is Scrooge. DuckTales Scrooge. He doesn't want the little boy ducks buying a bunch of shit that doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of crazy crap that happened during that time. That was not a typical Mars retrograde. That was a South Node Mars retrograde square Uranus. And Mars was in shadow and coming out of shadow when it squared Venus when it was retrograde. So Venus is about to go through. So when it comes to our relationships, when it comes to our projects, we're about to enter a zone in where chaos came from June into September of 2018. Oh, I could only imagine the look on people's faces. But you know, Mercury is making nice sextiles to Venus still, which means if you just focus on good people that you feel aligned with, that you feel understand your mission, understand who you are, this is the new spiritual home being built right now, folks. And it's slowly but surely, those people are all coming together. But Venus is getting ready to square Uranus. So that's why I'm bringing up the chaos, because when Mars was in its retrograde direct motion, this was the shadow point of the direct, was 28 Cap. And here's Venus squaring Uranus now. And what does this mean? Well, one, Venus square Uranus is a fear of radically changing the things that you want, or learning to not be afraid to watch some things just fall apart, like my pen, or some things just not work out and not make sense, and allow a new situation to move forward, and to not lose your cool or to not go crazy about it, but to sit in the security of that I want to go to a better place. So fuck it, trash it, let's see what happens. So let's go to March 1st. I'm going to end this real soon. I know it's been a long, deep astrology, but I know that people have been dying for all this info. Rabbit, by the way, you better say that. If there's any month in the universe I've ever seen in my life to say rabbit, the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, I know that's an old, thing to do to give you good luck. Please say it. Because we are entering into a gnarly March. March is not going to be fluffy. I'm just preparing people. So we start the month out with, look at that, the moon on the exact position of Saturn, exact on Pluto, and this is on a freaking Friday. This is kind of us being shown by Friday where the universe is pulling us into a mission. Venus enters into Aquarius, and now this kind of signals this new connection, this new world, and Venus now enters into where Mars retrograded last year, and it's going to try and understand and see what to own and what not to own in the crazy chaos of, we could even go back because Uranus entered Taurus on May 15th to 18. Venus is squaring that shadow point. We are entering into the completion points of all of the crazy psychotic energy we all went through starting in May of 2018. This is it. This is the ending stuff right here. It's all coming to its close. And so this is where we make choices on whether to own that energy still and continue it or let it go and disconnect. Venus in Aquarius is good for friendship, acquaintances, you know, but it also is not good in elements of like holding on to relationships that you're heavily emotionally in, because Venus sees in Aquarius that it's not going to move forward. It's like, sorry, like you're not going in the direction that's going to help people. It's kind of like when you see that person that you're best friends with and you're doing everything with, and then they start going down the wrong road, and then you're like, I don't want to go down that road. That's what Venus in Aquarius is. I love you and I will still love you, but I got to go this way and you got to go that way until maybe you get your ship fixed or whatever. And so there's a parting of ways with Venus in Aquarius. But there's also, right when you part ways, this new energy that comes in of people that are totally in alignment with where all the dominoes make sense. We also are having the sun reaching 10 degrees. So we're now at the second decan of Pisces. And that means this pushes the whole sensitivity and the whole deeper aspect of where we're guided spiritually in a much more intense place. So Friday's pretty intense coming in this weekend, because here's Mercury now at 28 degrees, and it is making that Chiron connection. And Mars is at 10 degrees, and it's now in the second decan of Taurus. And there's a lot going on here now. Things are now in higher degrees. We don't have anything at the low degrees except for Chiron. So everything's all in high. And then Venus. And Venus and Chiron are making a sextile, which means we can heal ourselves by finding the people that make sense in our life of who we are and who we identify truly with. But we can be convoluted with Mercury there of thinking, well, I can be myself with this person, so maybe I should be there. But it's like, no, what about your full self and your real feelings, the real shit? The stuff that's not judged. Aquarius doesn't judge because we're all human beings. We're all not normal. We're all weird. We're all different. Venus in Aquarius is like, so you like to pick your butt? Nice, cool. I'm still going to be friends with you. I learned yesterday from Craig that parasites tend to make your butt itch. Thank God my butt doesn't itch. Let us know in the comments if that's true. What? Diatomaceous earth? Yeah. Or what's that stuff you eat? Oh, diatomaceous earth. Yeah, Leo, at the High Vibe Leo King Studios, we have diatomaceous earth. Just you walk in, you just take a whole chunk of powder and you just eat it. I'm just kidding. On Saturday, I think things will lighten up. But it is Friday coming into Saturday, which ironically enough, that morning when Moon is at the void off course point, even though it will be making squares to Uranus, so it really will not be void of course, but I'll be filming Good Morning Arizona. So if you're out in Arizona, you can check me out on, I think that's the ABC affiliate out there, the morning show. That's where I'll be this weekend. But this Venus and the Moon are coming together to make us feel better and to make us feel connected by disconnection, letting go. With a sun in Pisces, a moon in Aquarius, We got to let the past go. We got to let those things that don't make sense go. And we got to connect forward with the things that do make sense, that are imaginative, that are not feeling like nothing. If it feels like nothing still, which can be very convoluted because you can be very emotionally intense about things and losing it because you're afraid of the nothing. You're afraid of going into something because you've been so habitually connected to it. So this is a part to where it's like really the nothing is sitting in an energy of fear of letting something go to go to something new that you don't know. Because that's not nothing, that is actually something. What is nothing is you sitting in the same place and regurgitating the same energy that you already know. Because now the brain, the mind, the soul has absorbed it so much that you've been replaying it so much. And really at the end of the day, I don't know how many times you've watched a certain movie and that DVD is just sitting there and you're like, yeah, whatever, that movie's nothing anymore. Oh, you know what? I used to do that, but that's nothing to me anymore. Playing with some words today. Neptune as well comes to 16 degrees. Remember that Neptune went retrograde at 1630 of Pisces. So Neptune is almost out of its shadow period. So that's what I'm saying. March is going to be a gnarly month because look at the universe is ready to get Neptune out of its shadow soon and move us into a magical new world that we can't see right now. But of course, it's easy for Neptune to go, oh my God, no, we're not there yet. And I could push this off another day. I could push this off another week. I could push this off another month. Maybe I could push this off another lifetime. Ha ha ha. Don't think so. Sun and Mars still in sextile, so really positive energy with that element. As you can see, the universe is trying to really push us forward through this week and to keep us moving forward. And with the moon in Aquarius, to learn to disconnect and so forth. Also as well, Pluto, 22 degrees. I mean, this is a big deal, right? I mean, it's never been here since early 1770s. That's out of shadow. Now, Mercury is only 1 degree away from coming into the craziness, which is 29 degrees, and that's going to happen on Saturday. And let's take a look at Sunday so I can show you all. Okay, this is where people get a little crazy. So Mercury's at the last degree of the zodiac and it's sitting right there, right by Chiron. And more importantly, the sun now has triumphed over Mars. Mars is not, Mars is still the leader of the pack, but now the sun is catching up fast. It's now faster than Mars. And we are not going to have a positive Sun-Mars connection until the Sun-Mars conjunction point. I mean, I think I could actually find some more, but you're going to really realize that this was the big point here. If you understand the timings of things, like the sun's now gaining on Mars. The Leo is catching up. The lion is catching up to the Aries warrior, right? It's like, ha, ha, ha. And it's laughing while it's doing it. And Pisces like, oh, this is kind of fun too. And Mars and Taurus is tripping out like, oh God, I think I stood here at this like flower shop too long. Or I thought, man, because Mars and Taurus is trying to build the whole, I think I said it in one of my horoscopes last week. It was like, Mars and Taurus is like, okay, you ran to the war. Now get the tents up, get the armor on. Take a poop when you need to take a poop. But now Mars is starting to flip out like, uh-oh, the sun, it's coming up to me. Oh, shit, I got to go. Like, we need to get this thing, start building. And that's the whole thing about Mars and Taurus is about, you got to keep momentum going. When you stop, and with Mercury conjunct Chiron at the last degree and the first degree of the zodiac, with Chiron there, like, guess what that means? You are stalling. And when Mars is in Taurus stalling, it's like a freight train stopping. And to get it back to go forward, all three engines got to go, come on, little engine that could. Do you remember the little engine that could? Come on, little engine. And we don't have Mr. Rogers here to kind of guide us through this moment in our lives. Poor little engine that could. It could. Are you sitting in a bunch of coulds instead of just doing it? Okay, now the moon is going to square Mars, and that's where I think that's the whole hilarious aspect of this, is the moon in Aquarius is like, hey, let's disconnect so we can move better into a better place and move forward, especially with the moon in Aquarius And Uranus, which is in Aries at this last degree, the moon is saying like, yeah, let's go. We got Venus here, we got the moon, let's go into the future. And Mars in Taurus is kind of like, oh, hold on. It's like totally like, you know, I've been in the club biz for a long time, you know, and when you try to get girls to get to the club, it's like, all right, we're going, we're loading, we're getting in the car. Hold on, I gotta get my extension back on. I forgot my shoes on. This is like, okay. And as guys, we already prepare for this, so we just kind of like go outside and have a smoke and wait, and then all the girls come running out. Oh my God, oh my God. Like, this is the moment where, is that what you're doing in your life? Are you stalling? Like, oh God, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Let's go. So the universe is pushing us into this, and Mercury in Pisces is like, I'm not ready. This is just too crazy. This is too scary. I'm not sure. Plus, Mercury and Uranus now officially are making a semi-sextile, and Uranus and Neptune are continuing their semi-square. And you know, this kind of creates this kind of chaotic feeling of what is being let go into the future. But this is what happened in 1992, 93 with the Uranus-Neptune conjunction, 94. With that Neptune and Uranus conjunction, now we're at the 45-degree angle of that and that square. And look at how social media and technology has taken off. But at the same time, look at the tech companies. They've had major fallouts. People are over Facebook. They're over Instagram. They're over all that shit. They're trying to reconnect back to the world again. And so you need to look at it like you letting go of how you're letting go right now of social media and how you're letting go of things that just don't connect with you at once. At one time in your life, you loved going on so much. You loved pushing like. You loved doing a lot of things. And I'm not saying that we still got to have those things, but that whole vibe, there's some things that we need, like somebody like me, this is how I as I get stuff out, so I need it. But like, you know, people always ask me, did you get my message? I'm like, I didn't check my phone, like, because I'm interested in something that I'm more in the future with now. And that's what this is about. And that's a good way to help people understand what you're leaving behind at one point had a very deep and significant, powerful place. But no longer, as you are reinstalling new software for your future and letting go of stuff that taught you a lot and got you on your spiritual path. Last day that we're doing here, Monday the 4th. And this is where it's extreme, folks. It's the last day before Mercury retrograde. So Monday, get your hard drives backed up, get your data figured out, have the hardest conversations of your life if you have to. Because if you're going to try and do this during this crazy Mercury retrograde, I'm just telling you right now, good luck. March is not an easy month. And this is the last moment of all the planets direct. So that's why I'm saying this week, and this week it might be hard, but like the choices that you have to make, the things that you need to let go of, they have to be done now or they will not. They will now be like, I've already used some of those analogies before, but they will just be kind of like following you and stuck to you. This is kind of like getting a tattoo that you don't want. Like the best one I ever saw in Lake Havasu City, because I race. But even before I was racing, was scrumptious on this girl's belly, and she was drunk, and she was like, come here, I'm scrumptious. And I was just like, no. Oh. So, other point to look at of interest is Venus at 3 degrees. And the reason why I think this is interesting is because it's come off the square to the shadow point of where Uranus is. And so we have a big breakthrough. And the breakthrough is this dark moon on Monday. And this is a point for us to realize that whatever is at its end, it's an ending time, not a new beginning time, because this is the dark moon. And now the moon has fallen down with the sun below Venus on the horizon line at the dawn. And we do rise every morning from Monday into the new moon as this, new world, this new way of looking at things, but whether or not we're ready to make the ultimate sacrifice of disconnection. And I'm just going to shoot straight from the hip now for the last 2 minutes here, is this. The best way that I could say this is that all the dominoes in your life have finally all come together. If you look at V is for Vendetta, how he lays all the dominoes for years out with his plan. And you need to realize that your subconscious and your higher self have laid this plan out for you. And it's confidence and nerve-wracking to push the domino and watch the whole effect change and change the story and end a story. But being naive about how all these puzzle pieces are confusing and how we can get trapped into our own delusions, into creating our own fantasies of how we want things to be, is the number one scary part about this. Are you delusional? Are you crazy? Are you misguided? Talk about the ultimate spiritual test. I mean, Jesus has come up a lot tonight, but do you think he was delusional? I don't think so. This is where you have to trust your own crazy, because normal is crazy, and crazy is normal. But in the sense when it comes to your own understanding of your future and what makes sense. Crazy is normal because if you're trying to make your life normal and stabilize situations that are not in alignment, that is fucking crazy. Because what you are doing is entering back into jail. I know it's scary to be in crazy world because it's actually normal. Because the world that we live in today is fucking crazy. Because everybody is suppressing, everybody is living off this, like a great example, like I gotta make a book on going on dates over the 2010s with Uranus and Aries, and with Tinder and with all those things back in the day when I lived in Hollywood. And like the number one thing, is like there's like these unwritten laws out there. Like, well, I just met you and I haven't talked to you for 4 days. We haven't done 4 dates yet. So like, I don't know if I could kiss you yet or not, or if we could do this yet or not, or who wrote these rules? And I use that analogy because we see this one the most in like relationships. Or, we've been together for this long, or we've done this together, or we've done that, so you have to be this way. Where's that rule at? What? Do you think like the lion, like when it runs out and eats a gazelle is kind of like, dude, why didn't you do it when the gazelle got like another drink of water? It's like, well, the lion was hungry. Or the sun when it has solar flares, like we just had this last like weekend, we had a big one, and of course there was coronal hole, and there was a big earthquake down, and I think it was down in South America somewhere. I think it was, I forgot, I don't remember. It was 7.5. Like, gosh, why didn't the universe just wait 1 more minute for that person who was underneath the TV that they didn't hang up right in the cartel's like place and it fell on them or something, like why? Like there's no rules here as far as like these unwritten ones, that you are using unwritten rules, which actually a great band I listened to when I was young, and I still listen to them once in a while, is Unwritten Law. And You know, it's like these unwritten laws you are living by as your constitution, which is holding you from watching the most amazing story happen. And it's the delusion of living by these laws that are creating the most uncomfortable place in your life, because what it is truly living in a life that is fake. It's fake because it's been defined by an unwritten rule and an unwritten source, and it's not connected to true source in yourself, and it's not connected to true source in the universe. There is no law of how many times you need to do this until you kiss someone, how many times you need to do this before you decide you want to take a pee. Of course, there's customs and there's traditions, like if you're going to excuse yourself from the table to go pee, you know what? You excuse yourself from the table. But is there a law of like when you do that? Like, should you wait till after the salad, or should you wait till after the bread's been done? This is the kind of crazy stuff you're going to be thinking in your head in more realistic, hardcore, intense energies in your life. And all you got to do is start to realize that, you know what, when you're ready and this is what you feel, and it feels this is what you feel, you just do it. You excuse yourself, you be polite, you be compassionate, and you go and you do what you got to do. Because there is no law against doing that, and there is no law that is holding you from doing whatever it is that you truly emotionally and with the universe and with God feel like you need to be. And that reminds me, you should check out highvibe.tv, because we are launching our Lightworker School. We got a lot going on there. Check it out now, highvibe.tv. And of course, my fate video, which I think we're all at this point right now to really talk about this. Hour and 52-minute video where I talk about free will and fate, and how fate trumps free will, and how it's really truly about that one moment when fate has finally arrived, and when you get that moment of free will choice of one or two. Sometimes you might see 3 or 4, but I'm just telling you, it usually is. And the way this universe works, and especially with the dual helix system, which hasn't gone to 12 yet, because we are just like genetically engineered human beings by reptilians, we're almost there. Trust me, folks. We are doing the work, and we all need all the light workers to step up right now and get over these unwritten laws and these unwritten things, because people's free will is their ego. So, check that video out at theleoking.com. Also, thank you for going on to Amazon and purchasing my 2019 astrology guide. Thanks for making it the #1 bestseller in astrology a couple weeks ago, and of course, in the top for spirituality. I truly appreciate it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching Deep Astrology. Please make sure that you share this to get this out. I'm wishing you all the best. I'm sending you positive energy. I know that was some deep shit, but I know, you know what? This is a great time. This is the moment for you to capitalize. Think of you on Falkor and fucking going for it and going through the fucking, you know, the challenge of the rite of passage to get out of the nothingness, which the nothingness is you holding yourself to these unwritten laws and holding yourself from what you know is true and getting all over emotional about it. And that's normal and that's good. But emotions are to release. Why do you think we cry? We release it and we move forward. We don't cry and we sit in it and then create a pool in it and then fucking shit in the pool and take a bath in it. I never understood people that peed in the bath while they bathed. Is that what you're doing? Love you all. I will see you all on Future Life, which is turning into highvibe.tv very soon. We got those apps getting launched. And of course, thank you for everything. Thank you for your support. And of course, I'll see you all in the next Deep Astrology.